Welcome to Squatchin Holler.
In the mist where the trees lean low, Squatchin Holler's got a tale to show. Whispers creep like a creature's faint howl. Every shadow's got a secret to growl. Monsters rise where the stories are told. Squatchin Holler where the legends are born. Are they here? Are they gone? Who can say? In the holler, the truth just slips away. Huge footprints fade where the creek runs thin. A lantern sways, let the search begin. Rustling leaves, but there's no one near. Is it the wind or the beast you fear? Every echo's a question, every rustle's a clue. Squatchin Holler's got its eyes on you. Monsters rise where the stories are torn. Squatchin Holler where the legends are born. Are they here? Are they gone? Who can say?
And now, with your Squatchin Holler hosts, Roger Williams, Amanda Stowers, and Ashley Range. Remember, this podcast can be downloaded everywhere great podcasts are found. And now the show.
Hey, Amanda, something doubled up. Did you hear that on your end? Sound
not-
good?
No, yeah, now you're coming in clear. Yeah, there you are.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, am I not? I can hear you just fine. Can you not hear me?
I've got an echo doubling. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Let me go out. Come back.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Well, good evening, everybody. This is the joys of doing everything live. So looks like we've already got 32 people chimed in with us. That's awesome. Thank you everybody for tuning in. So while we're waiting on Roger to get situated on his end with technical difficulties, Ashley will actually not be joining us this evening as well. But there she is. Yeah, you will see her chiming in on the chat, and so y'all say howdy to her over there. So let's see, what else can I talk about while we are killing time? Oh me. How about this? So while we got Roger backstage, I'm actually just going to go ahead and bring our guest Kevin Ashby up onto stage. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Some stuff's happening. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
All right. I've got a doubling here that's pretty bad. So I'm gonna keep these off and then we can talk. I can hear you, but yeah, this is not good. I think what happened,
You sound just fine on my
we had a
side, so I'm
Facebook
not hearing an
issue,
echo. I'm sorry.
and I don't know why it's doing this. All right. So anyway, yeah, no, I'm not messing with ham, Jeffrey. I've got a delay over here. So anyway, let me see. Let's try this. Hold on. All right. Can you say something?
Something. Hi.
I apologize.
That's all right. Sorry,
is
y'all.
gonna
We're
be
super
tough.
professional around here, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That's what we say all the time. What, Roger? We don't take ourselves very seriously despite taking this subject matter seriously. So technology is our best friend.
I'm gonna have to barely listen and read lips. When she stops talking, I dog. So, yeah, y'all. Okay, so we've got a special guest tonight. I feel lucky to have him on. He doesn't usually do shows. We've become friends. He's friends with the Woodwalkers crew. The thing about Kevin is he lives in East Tennessee now, but he's from Murphysboro, Illinois, if I'm thinking correct. And the Big Muddy Monster, I didn't know anything about it. And Kevin was there when all of that was going on. It's right, John.
Yep.
So we'll bring Kevin in and let him start talking about that. I'm gonna try to get this fixed on my end as we're talking. So let's welcome Kevin.
Yeah,
Hey,
let's go ahead and
Kevin.
bring him on stage here. Hey, Kevin, thanks for tolerating
Hey.
us this evening. Can you hear me okay, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. There you are. Yay,
Good.
I saw that lost you too. Oh no. Oh me. Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on our little show here and talking to us this evening. So, from what I understand, listening a little bit backstage, sounds like you and Roger already know each other a little bit. So, how do you two know each other? If you don't mind telling the audience.
We met up at the LBL. We had a
Mhm.
meet and greet for woodwalkers, and I had Roger down on one side of me and Billy Shillings and Christy, and it was me and then Gary Spikes
Oh,
uh,
fun.
on that side over there, and Cam Buckner.
Yep.
Mm.
And Naomi Finn was there for a little bit, and it was you talking about fanboying, like meeting all these people, and I'm talking about everybody, Kevin and Billy and all. You see them in chat, and it was great to finally get to meet them. So backstage, Kevin was giving me a little dirt on the little small town rumors, with the Big Muddy Monster that I never heard of before. We talked to him, but he had a terrifying event happen when you were about, what, 11 years old, did you say?
Yeah, I was 11 at that time.
So, was was the big was did the Big Muddy ordeal happen first, and then you had your sighting and encounter, or
No, my sighting was first, and then followed it like almost a year later by the Big Muddy Monster.
alright, I'm sure everybody ready to, see what happened to you, y'all. This is terrible. I hope y'all sound as good. So if you want to, just give us a little background and kinda what happened to you. I know it changes you, like what
Mhm.
happened to me, so, just give us a little rundown, if you would.
Okay, so I was brought up and raised in Murphysboro, Illinois. My grandparents were pretty well known, and grandparents actually, around that part of the country. So I was raised in a project with a single mother, and normally what we had to eat was whatever I would bring home every on a normal daily basis. So my grandfather took me down to uh, Oakwood Bottoms, and Oakwood Bottoms is probably like 11, 12 miles from Murphysboro, and it's levied in because it's on the Mississippi Flyway. And they would come in there in the last of, well, normally about the middle of October, and flood that whole bottom land in there. And because it was full of pin oak, and the pin oaks were something that the ducks really like to eat on. But we went in there in September, and my grandfather dropped me and my buddy off, and we went out there and went probably about a mile and a half back into the levee area to do a little bit of squirrel hunting. And I had dropped 2 squirrels already that morning, and was just sitting there, minding, just as a young kid at 11 years old, and I was like, I've been raised in the woods, and was waiting to see if I could get any more squirrels coming in. I could hear a tree drop earlier in the morning, and I really didn't think much about it because trees drop all the time. I'd shot those 2 squirrels and just let them be, because normally when the body starts to cool off, you start losing the parasites and that off of the squirrels. So I really didn't think much about it. And I was just kind of sitting there, and this thing, I'm gonna call it a thing, because at that time we didn't have any clue. We didn't have a clue of what it was, never heard of it, never seen it. Like I said, I've been in the woods all my life, and it was coming up there, and it seemed like it wanted those squirrels. And I was just sitting there, and it was running back and forth in between the trees and shaking the trees. And apparently it really wanted those squirrels. Wasn't a whole lot to me, but like I said, as an 11-year-old kid, you're sitting there trying to fathom what you're looking at. This thing looked at me like he didn't care if I lived or died. I mean, bottom line. And I was like, okay, that squirrel don't mean a whole lot to me. So if you want them, you can have them. And the longer I sat there, the madder it seemed to be. And we're looking at, if you took a sheet of plywood, it was 4x8, that would be about how big this thing was in my mind.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, it's yours. I'm going to work my way back up to the levee and get there. So I finally started working my way back to the levee, which, a mile back in the woods, and you're trying to work your way back to where there's open land. And so I finally worked my way back through there. I was looking behind me the whole time, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I was carrying a 12-gauge shotgun with 3 rounds of number 6 shot in it. And I knew whatever this thing was, that I wasn't going to hurt it one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally worked my way back up to the levee, and my grandfather was up there waiting on me. And my buddy was up there. Whenever I got there, he goes, "What's wrong with you?" I said, I seen something. I don't know what it is, and I can't wrap my mind around it. So Grandpa put us in the car, and he's like, my grandfather raised me whenever I was a young boy. The family has been in that town forever. And finally, when we dropped my buddy off, I explained to my grandfather what I'd seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we were pretty respected. We owned a lot of stuff back in there. And my grandfather said, "I'm going to take you back down there tomorrow. You're going to go back in those woods, and we're going to start this all over again." So sure enough, Grandpa come up the next morning, grabbed me. We went out there. I went into the woods, and he goes, "I'll be here when you get back." So I went back into the woods, come back out. Probably about 4 or 5 hours later, I dropped 4 squirrels by then. And my grandfather, the only words he had to tell me was, "Do not let something take from you something that you enjoy that much." And that's how we were raised. Like I said, they owned grocery stores, they owned the skating rinks, they owned a lot of stuff in that town. My grandfather never questioned what I had to tell him, because he knew I wouldn't exaggerate what was going on.
Yeah. How did it feel while you were in there that couple of hours?
The first time or the second time?
When Grandpa took you back
Grandpa
out
took
there.
me back down there. Like I said, I'd been raised. We'd been hunting forever, and Grandpa, had always told me, we had been in the woods for a long time. Me and Grandpa would go quail hunting and rabbit hunting back in the backwoods. And whenever I come back out, and Grandpa was like, "Don't let him take this." And I was like, "So you've seen this before?"
Mm.
Because Grandpa always told me whenever I left the house, cause we lived in the projects,
Uh-huh.
and Grandpa seemed to be that he knew what I was talking about, but he just never told me that he knew what I was talking about. He goes, because he told me whenever I was younger, he said, "Boy, don't ever go out in them woods without a gun."
Mm.
And I took that as that's how I was raised. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So did he tell you that before or after that incident?
The one with the
About
gun?
about not going out in the woods without a gun.
We were fishing on Lake Murphysboro one day, and we were sitting there, and we were just talking. Grandpa had the concession stand out on the lake,
Okay.
and we talked about it when we were out in the boat and we were fishing. And he was like, "Don't go in them woods without taking your gun with you."
Mm.
He goes, "Because there are eyes on you every time you go in those woods."
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have anything back there. There's no bears. There's no mountain lions. There's nothing. Coyotes, maybe.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking Grandpa was a knower instead of a because it
Sounds
didn't
like
seem to
it.
upset him, and he was like, "Yeah, okay."
Grandpa sounded like a wise man
Grandpa
for
was a
sure.
wise man.
And that was awesome of him to take you right back out there into the woods and say,
Get back
"Hey,
on.
we're not letting this
Yeah.
spook you from doing what you enjoy." Because sadly, with a lot of witnesses and stuff that we hear all the time, that encounters with these things, it can, affect them so much so where they don't go back out into the woods. So, and I can't even imagine that at 11 years old. So having your grandpa to be able to kind of give you that extra push that you needed back out into there, that's got to be something.
Did, um, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you fine.
Did you ever? I missed a lot, but had you ever heard anything from the neighbors like before that or after that? Did you talk
Do
about
what now?
about the boogers in the woods, or whatever?
My grandparents always when I was growing up, my grandparents always said, "Come on home before the lights go out because the boogers will get you." And I was like,
We hear that all the time down
"Whatever."
here too.
I was like, "Whatever." You hear that all your life.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting here thinking, well, maybe Grandma knew more than I thought she knew too.
Hmm. So they called them or that your grandpa folks called them boogers too?
Yes.
Interesting, because I know you usually hear that is strictly associated with the South, which I personally haven't seen and heard that, but I hear that in a lot of other groups. So it's interesting to hear somebody who grew up in Illinois that's what they called them too.
So now you're these things are real, and then you hear about the big muddy monster. Are you like sitting back, like shaking your head, like and I know it was a big deal back then. Can you tell everybody what was going on in the community and how it got reported and all that?
Okay. So it was like a year later, almost to the date, actually. It come around in August, June, July, August. It would have been June the 25th. And that's when everything started kicking off. Like I said, in our town, you didn't say a whole lot. It was 10,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, and they knew your grandparents because your grandparents knew everybody. But in June of June the 25th of 1973 is whenever we had the outbreak that started actually down in the Big Muddy River with a couple who at that time their names were Randy Needham and Judy Johnson, and they worked at the same store. and Judy Johnson was 28 and Randy was 19. And they had been down there by the river and they heard screaming. And then Randy looked up. He couldn't fathom what he was seeing. So the first thing they did was went to the Murphysboro police station, which back in those days, that kind of would have been a scandalous thing because Randy was 19, she was 28, and they were both married to different people.
Mm.
So they went to the police station, and that's whenever the big money monster thing kicked off. Now it's like a big festival, but back in the days, I remember Chief Berger brought in every patrolman he had, which was 14, and one canine person, and he brought them all into work every night to take care and see what was going on. And they had one incident to where everybody showed up. They took the canine dog down there. The canine dog went up to the shed, but they couldn't make the dog go into the shed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was still screaming going on whenever they got there, and that dog would not go in there. So the police officers went in there and they never found anything. But yeah, and I got to give them props, in that day and age, in 1973, and you got 14 people and 14 people show up to see what's going on. Yeah, they took
That's
it they took it really seriously. Yeah, they did.
That almost makes you think that the sheriff or somebody had reports before or had seen it themselves. Because you're right, a lot of people. I worked at sheriff's department a long time ago, and something like that happened, they didn't want to touch it. It was swept under the rug. So for them to take it seriously was kind of pretty amazing for that time.
Yeah, it was, and like I said, this went on and off through the 4th of July, and then they had the carnival people who sent in a deal or to the police station talking about something out there, looking over after the ponies out there because they were having the festival down there, and they didn't want to scare off any visitors at that time, so they waited a couple of days before they turned in the report for it. And it's like maybe a quarter of a mile from where all this started happening.
Mm-hmm.
I take my think back, like if something like that would have happened here, and knowing the people that were in charge, I don't think it would hurt them. So for them to take it seriously, either someone they knew and trusted reported something, or they knew the history already. So,
Right. I was looking at the reports today. You can pull up the reports on the Murphysboro police station. So
I still got it. Amanda, you might have to.
You're good. I was trying to see if I could make out what you was saying there, where you was saying it was real low there for just a second.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
I apologize, y'all.
No, you're good. It's all good. So yeah, you was talking about how all those officers went out there like that. It kind of reminds you of something that happened recently with the mall incident in Miami, where they had like hundreds of the cops show up all at once for some mysterious reason. So but that's here in 2023, 2024 when that happened. So that happening when you said that, what was that? You said
73.
73. So having all 14 of them show up like that, like, so that's a very big deal. And also, can I just chime in here real quick? Because we are in a southern chat room right here. I love the fact that you're sitting there with your little spittoon there real quick as we've been talking. I'm like, oh my God, this is the best. I love this so much.
Yeah. Kevin's a relaxed feller.
I like it.
I love it. Everybody's making fun of me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, everybody's going off in chat right now. Can
The
you hear me
problem
now?
is I can hear these 2 and there's a delay and they're talking twice, and I'm like, it's messing me up. But so was that like an incident that kinda happened and flared up and then kinda went away, or did they
It the Murphysboro at that time was like a town of 10,000. So and that's like every community around it, kind of like what it is now. Uh, so yeah, that would have been kind of a pretty big deal back in those days. I mean, to take something that people were telling you and take it that seriously. And we had people coming into town that were monster hunters. I'm going to throw it
Mhm.
up there. Yeah.
Yep.
Monster hunters, and they were running us out of ammunition because everybody was going into the backwoods, cutting through people's fences. The people whose fences they were cutting through were renting them out trailer spaces and tent spaces, and that town grew from probably 10,000 to Lord 15, 20,000 that first weekend of people just coming down there to see what was going on.
So
It was crazy.
so now they have a festival, right? Every year?
Yeah.
It's pretty big.
Yeah,
I saw
it
that
is.
online. I was looking, and I spelled Murphysboro wrong. For y'all that wanna look it up, it's Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not Murfreesboro, it's Murphysboro.
Is that how they spell it here or there in Tennessee?
Here in Tennessee, it's Murfree. So, yeah,
That's right. That's
I
right.
was Googling and it wasn't working.
Yeah, 'cause in Murphy, North Carolina, that's spelled Murphy.
So
Okay.
when so you've been exposed to all this and from being a kid and then seeing all the hubbub, so to speak, of what was happened, and at what age did you move away and move east?
Well, there was a nice man named Paul Harvey
Hmm.
back in the days when I graduated from high school, and he said, if you want a job and you want to see the world, go to Hobbs, New Mexico. And so me and my mama went to Hobbs, New Mexico, and he was right. If you want to see the world, you go to work for Halliburton. And it was like a whole different world. There was like people living underneath the fire stacks at the Phillips 66 plant and this and that. And so we went there, and I worked there for a while. And then because I had a high security clearance, I went to work at the Nevada test site. Back in those days, cementing nuclear bombs in the hole during the Cold War, and come back to Hobbs, and then they transferred me to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and that's when I ended my deal with Halliburton. I'd been there for like 12 years at that time.
That had to be an amazing, culture shock going from
Yeah, it was.
So did you lived in Tuscaloosa? Or
Yes.
did you ever go, to the national parks back in the day?
No, we went to Tuscaloosa, and at that time they were drilling for methane gas.
Mm.
And the first year I was there, I had never watched a college football game in my life, but the first year I was there, they had shut us down during that time. And at that time is whenever I started watching every Alabama game ever made.
That's how that happened.
When the Goodyear
wondering how
blimp
that
would land right next to us. So
So let me ask you, have you ever had anything weird happen other than like Bigfoot sighting or anything like that? Because a lot of people, you'll talk to them like some of us, we've had this weird stuff happen. Did anything happen in between you living in Murfreesboro and then moving around the country? Did you ever?
well, I moved from there from Tuscaloosa. We went to Brownwood, Texas, which there ain't a tree anywhere around there that's big enough to hide nothing but a jackrabbit. And I was a happy man. I was a happy man for those years. And then retirement come around, and we'd started coming to Pigeon Forge and Townsend and this and that. And I was like, when I retire, this is where I'm going to retire. So I retired here, and we bought our property here because of all the open space behind us. And I knew what I was kind of getting into at that time because I was wanting answers from years gone by of what I had seen.
Right.
So we bought this property down here in this hollow whenever I retired. And that's where we still are at this moment. And
it's a beautiful area.
We have more cameras running in the Lord's than anybody should allow.
So
did the cameras show up before or
Yeah.
after stuff started
The camera
happening?
showed up after an incident that we had, and because the back of the hollow here backs up to my house, and there's probably like maybe 30. No, there's not even that much. There's probably 20 yards between us and where the grass line starts and the hills begin. And we put them up because we had stuff that were going on, and I was hearing tree breaks. And don't ever put a camera out there if you don't really want to know what's going on. or audio recorder. I'm just saying.
Kevin, as you're talking about where you're at now, I'm gonna show a few pictures as you just keep. So when you bought the place and moved in, did things start happening immediately, or did it take some time?
It took a little time, and like I said, we were here, and we're still happy. There's still a lot of stuff around here. I have turkey, I have deer, I have whatever else around here, and squirrel out there. Yeah, so many squirrels.
It looks like a really beautiful picture. I'll show you pictures of like some of these I've got mixed up. You took these today, right?
Yeah.
So for y'all that don't know, and some of these are from the area. So this is what Kevin sees most every day.
It's paradise right there.
Yeah. Look at this.
That's my backyard.
It's so green. It's awesome.
And for y'all that have never seen the Smoky Mountains, I would say that's a view from probably Clean Dome or North Carolina or somewhere.
That's coming off probably off the hill coming out of Seymour.
Okay. So what tell us kind of what started happening and how you did it bring back those old feelings of living in Murphysboro?
We moved here, and I'm a believer, and my wife is like that. Where I go to and say, "Are you hearing what I'm hearing?" So I was like, "What does that sound like to you?" And she'd be like, "That's a 500-pound possum."
Yeah.
So once I installed all the cameras in that, up until that time, it was kind of like you would hear stuff all night long. And I put the cameras out there, and that way it kind of keeps everything, to me, it keeps it in its boundaries. Right. So we don't hear as much as, especially this year, we didn't hear a whole lot because we had the cicada outbreak, and now we're dealing with the frog outbreak. So, but we put the cameras up. That keeps a whole lot of stuff down. And cut the woods back, and I moved all of our stuff inside the fence because I have 2 granddaughters, and it seemed to get worse whenever they would be here. So I moved everything inside the fence line in the front yard, And it's been kind of quiet for the last year, but I say that because they come in here and cut down all the little trees that I had around the house that run down the electric lines and stuff. So that kind of put a hiatus on whatever was going on back there at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that time of year now to where things start picking up. It's like I said, it was 51 degrees here this morning. So that seems to be the big thing in there is the cooler and once you won't walk in these woods, I guarantee you, because once you clear that tree line up there, yeah, you can't see nothing for about the first 30 yards. You won't. I could
Especially
lose
the woods
people
are
up there in
real
30
thick.
yards.
I don't think people, realize. I showed Heather one day. We went for the BFRO report. 15 miles of the crow flies here. Lady, we took a back road where this was happening. I'm like, Heather, look, if a man was standing 10 yards over there to the left wearing bright orange, you wouldn't be able to
Mm.
because this stuff is so thick. And a lot of people are like, why don't you get pictures or how do they sneak around? It with some of this like Kevin's place, when it's that thick, we as human beings, we can we have to have machetes or weed eaters or tractors to kinda move things out of the way. Some of these animals can move really stealthily, even deer and all, like, how did they do that? But they're built so, um, I'd asked you earlier before we come on about your dogs, about, did they give you, like, warning if something's around and that like mine does, and I know a lot of people's do, and that would be a good thing advice number 1 here, y'all. If you're gonna go out boogering or big carry your dog with you. Carry
Yeah,
one you don't care much about. Joking.
Yeah.
that is like one of the worst things they hate is a dog.
Yeah.
I have a golden doodle, and that dog hears everything. And whenever I say everything, the UPS man can show up and no alarms will go off, and she will still know that UPS man is out there.
Mm.
So she's not a fighter by any means, but you don't know there's somebody there.
She's a good alarm dog.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. I moved in here and when we come here the first year, and I still do, I'm not going to lie to you, I have the best security that you can put up known to man. And I will still put a 2-step ladder on the back door to tell me if something is coming into that door. And I told Roger earlier, I was like, I sleep on my right side. I have a pistol that sits right there. So if anything was to come or I hear the alarms go off in the night, it may be the Amazon people at 5 o'clock in the morning. Whoever thought Amazon at 5 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, it's not a good idea. But anyway, I sleep on my right side and there's a pistol that sits right next to my bed. And within an arm's reach, I have a 12-gauge shotgun.
If you go through something traumatic as a kid, I've been there, and it changes how you think. We were talking about Heather's like, why do you look both ways before you step out? I could tell there's places to hide. It ain't not necessarily for Bigfoot, but where we live, but, just
Yeah, I do
get
the same
older
thing on
older
my front porch all the
you
time.
realize
Um, like I said, I'm not even necessarily worried about Bigfoot. I don't want to have a bear be right here around on the other side of my screen door when I open it. I don't look and see. Or this time of year, you got those big old ugly brown spiders all over my porch. I don't know if they're that up where you are, but I get those spiders everywhere, and I don't want to run into a big spider web if I go out on the porch either.
Well, my neighbor has been down here for 82 years. His family has been here forever. And he'll call me. It'd be like, "Hey, Kevin, there's a bear. It was out here by my car this morning. Okay, I got something for the bear if he shows up here." But then That's the same man. He's a preacher. I'm going to tell you right. He's a preacher. And I'll be, what do you think about this? And he goes, I'm going to tell you one thing. If you ever wander back in these woods, take a gun with you. And I was like, so you're saying there's something out here that I need to worry about more than a bear? He's like, yeah, probably.
Sounds like he was repeating almost word for word what your grandpa was saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
Without coming out and saying it, because when you're a preacher, you don't say, yeah, it could have happened. And he's like, no, if you come off the woods, because back by his house, that the woods back there are about as black can be. I don't care if it's in the middle of the day. I don't care what time of the day it is. Those woods are black. So if
far are
you
you from downtown?
do what?
How far are you from downtown Gatlinburg?
Gatlinburg for me would be a pretty good ways. It'd probably be like 15, 20 miles. Pigeon Forge is right around 9. Sevierville is 7.5. So we live way back in the hollers.
2023 Bigfoot conference there in Gatlinburg, and we were eating, and there was an older man sitting there, and of course, I talked to everybody. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing here? What's your interest?" He whips his phone out and starts showing tracks that he found, and they were so heavy on a hardship road in summertime that it mashed into the, not asphalt, but, that mixture, and the residue that was on the, foot was kind of, have like a grayish tan clay type material, up in that area maybe, but anyway, there were tracks on the road, and 2 weeks later, he said that material was still mashed down in the road. He showed, Matt Moneymaker right there in front of us, and his eyes got big, and he was like, told his assistant, like, "Get his information now." He said, "Where do you live?" He said, 12 miles. So, you don't have to go far out of those towns to get really, really cool really fast, so,
No, you really
um,
don't.
that's one of my
And
favorite things to do is ride the back roads. Don't shoot me, Kevin, if I come.
well, out here you won't ever see a print unless you're out like in the creek because it's kind of like a clay mixture.
Mhm.
So I can sit out there and I can step on it all day long and I won't even make a track in it. So, I mean, I look down there and there's slides and this and that. The front of my house, there's a stream out here that it's a natural stream and it's fed by the underground springs, and that people used to come out here and they would put their coat houses out here.
Mm-hmm.
So that stream is natural. I have a creek that runs east and west, and I have one that runs north and south. We're kind of on an island out here in the middle of nowhere.
So, I've got asked you, today, speaking of the preacher, when I saw this thing and then going to church and all, and, you don't know what these things are, you kinda struggle with it talking about it, and then you find out story that, in church, they'll kinda skip over these certain stories. Did that ever bother you any? Like, what are these things, or did you think
My wife,
that?
I was sitting there the other night with my wife, and she's like, I was like, I can't sleep. And she's like, what's wrong? I'm sitting here thinking about why do these things always end up in the graveyard?
Mm.
I mean, seriously, I'm like, I've been out with people and they're like, we're going to a graveyard. Why are we going to a graveyard to find something that roams around in the forest freely? And yet we're in a graveyard. And Michelangelo had a painting back in the days that showed something that looked like Sasquatch, and yet I was like, okay, so I can't even answer on that question. It blows my mind. It really does. I'm like, why are we going to a grave? But it seems like all the big things that happen in a graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I don't care if you're in the back of Daniel Daniel Boone Forest, it's going to happen in a graveyard.
Some of the people that recognize this place. So this place right here, this is the land between the lakes, and this is the campground where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 100 people that, and there's a graveyard right up the hill to the left here, and I don't remember exactly how many graveyards there are in the land between the lakes. But it is mind-boggling,
Yeah.
and there are people in the chat, like you said. I don't know if you went to one while you were there. We walked up the top of the hill, but you're right. A lot of people go to those things. We don't have any answers a lot of times. Just know they're hot spots, and who knows why.
Mhm.
But this is where the plane landed on the water, and he came in. I didn't meet that guy. I apologize, y'all. I'm double and triple hearing y'all.
Yeah, you're all right. We're good.
What did
We
you
get
think
It's fine.
about
So you
Squatchin
talk
Holler
about those
being
graveyards. I actually took a really interesting story this week at the museum that I might could share with y'all if you want. It has to do with graveyards. So it was actually in the 30s up here in North Georgia. This man came into the museum and he said, yeah, that his great grandmother, they were doing decoration on the church up here, and they saw she had her young kids with them as they were putting flowers out on the graves, and she saw what was they just described as the big hairy man was in the woods watching her and the kids, and it scared her so bad that she would never let the kids or anybody go back out to that graveyard, even as they became adults. They would never let them go back out there without them again. So it was really interesting that when you brought up graveyards, it's like, "Oh, I've heard that already twice this week now." So it's just an interesting thing how that all kind of correlates.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I'm like, well, we're going to meet up here at this graveyard. You know what? No, I don't need to be in a graveyard in the middle of the night to find something that I'm
You
looking
might
for.
accidentally bring something home with you don't
Oh, well,
want.
that's why I kept telling my son whenever he was growing up, I was like, go to the graveyard, you're going to bring back something you don't want. So, and apparently I was right again. I don't understand the correlation between the Bigfoot and the graveyard thing, but it seems to be a pretty big thing. You know what I'm saying? If
Mhm.
you really want to find one, go find a graveyard back in the middle of nowhere, and they're everywhere around here. And they're
Mhm.
the LBL and anywhere in the Smoky Mountains. I can be like here to Cave Cove in 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Uh, Everything that seems to happen happens at the graveyard, and that kind of blows my mind. I'm like, why do we need to go to a graveyard again? So
I
Wonder if
wonder
it has something to do with energies.
I wonder if it's, because people really don't visit graveyards, so it kinda maybe a safe space, and what's odd is, the one I saw back in the day, he was headed towards the graveyard, but behind him, but he didn't go to it. I watched him, but that's, with yeah, that's right, TKB. Uh, I've heard a lot of weird stuff, happening, so anyway, uh, Amanda, you have any questions?
Not off the top of my head, but I do have a question here that came up in chat. Let me pull it
Yeah,
up here.
if you got any questions. Okay, oh, yeah.
Yeah, these folks here asked and said, Kevin, did you or your granddad ever get to witness something together?
no,
No?
and no, we did a lot of hunting together. We did a lot of fishing together. Uh, like I said, we owned a concession stand out on the Lake Murphysboro. But as far as did we ever see anything together? No, we didn't.
Gotcha. Did grandpa ever tell you anything about what he ever saw or what he assumed or let me rephrase, you always just ever assumed that he saw and knew something. Did he ever share anything about what some of his experiences may have been?
No, but that's a whole different generation.
It
You
is.
know,
I agree.
whatever happened back then, it happened. Uh, Grandpa had a lot of good stories, but no, he never elaborated on what we were doing or what was going on in the forest or why I should have a gun every time I went into the forest.
Mhm.
But it kind of struck me at that time because I was like, Grandpa, there ain't nothing around here. Because as a kid, I wandered through those forests. You know, it was like my house, maybe 3 football fields away. Because back then everybody went down the railroad tracks, and you would go there and you would hunt rabbits or
Mhm.
whatever else, and whatever you brought home was what was supper that night. So, but it kind of struck me at that as in my older years. I'm like, why was Grandpa so worried about why I'm in the woods and what I'm carrying or what I'm doing or this and that? So
Gotcha.
I know you still do stuff. If you're in the woods hunting now, do you change how you do things now because of your past experiences?
I never enter the woods without something. You feel so vulnerable at that age. You have this gun, and what you see back in those days, and I'm just going to put it out there. It changed the way I enter the woods. So if I enter the woods, I may not be able to bring down what I'm looking at, but you know what? Man, I'm gonna be like Greg. I'm gonna be clawing and scratching all the way down. So, I carry my 12 gauge out there with me, along with a 10 millimeter pistol on my chest, and I go out there. I still try and enjoy the forest. I still try and enjoy being out there in nature, but it will change everything about your life because I guarantee you, I go in the woods and I'll step like 75 steps and I'll sit there and I'll wait because I'm waiting to see it. If something's looking at me around a tree, or if I'm out there in the dark, which I do a lot. If I'm out there in the dark, I'm listening constantly. And if something's going on, I'm going to back myself to a tree. And me and Roger talked about it the other day. I am more comfortable being by myself because I don't have to take care of anybody else around me. I'm taking care of me. I'm not having to worry about what this other person is doing, where he's at. And that way I don't have to worry about anything but me. I've been zapped one time and I almost never made it back home
Mm,
because I couldn't remember how to get here.
gracious.
Well, tell us about that.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, can you share some more details about that if
So
you don't
you're
mind?
going, I run multiple recording devices. So at the end of the day, I go and I pick them up. I bring them back home. I go over 'em. I wish I had the time back that I spent listening to recordings over what happened the last day or whatever. So when you get into an area that and you know it like the nub on the back of your head, and you can't remember how to get home, or you're trying to drive off a mountain you shouldn't be driving off of, then yeah, that's a whole different world right there.
Yeah, that's definitely gotta be jarring for sure.
I so, okay, have you ever seen any strange lights or anything like that while you're in the woods at night? And
I
the
have
reason I'm
never
asking is because there's a lot of didn't believe in this stuff, and then all of a sudden start seeing things. Have you experienced anything like that, like the orbs or
I've never seen the orbs, but you know what? When I come out here and I first started doing all this and I started doing all the the research on what I'm looking for and this and that. When I first started out, I thought it was natural. And as the longer I go about doing things and people are, people I trust tell me that the bushes and that are moving and they're not seeing anything, then I kind of had to take a different line on what I'm looking at.
Sorry, I had to jump out there for just a
You're
second.
good.
I missed the last few
You're
seconds
good.
there.
Let's see.
Scott Carpenter lived right down the road from me, probably 30 miles, give or take. And I'm kind of starting to believe that Nephilim thing, give or take. Things happen that you can't explain. If I'm sitting there looking at something and the branches are moving and things are moving and I can hear it, there's something going on out there that's not natural as we know it.
I agree. So Billy here is asking a question. It says, how long were you affected when you got zapped?
Probably around a minute. Would have been close. I'm sitting there going, how do I get home? Where am I going? And then I sit there and I was like, you got to put this together. 2 and 2 is 4. And you make it back home. And I told my wife, I said, I like to not made it back home because I couldn't remember how to get here.
That's crazy. Hang on 2 seconds. Let me scroll back up here. So yeah, we had another question here from Jeff. He says, Kevin, do the neighbors still have any problems around you that you're aware of?
I was out there. The one across, well, not across, but semi across from me. They're from Arizona. They're a whole different folk. They keep cleaning trees and stuff out of there. It's been kind of quiet, like I said, but I haven't been able to hear a whole lot because we've had so much going on around here. Normally I could put a recorder out here, and as soon as the sun set, that's whenever it would start. And here lately, all I can hear is frogs. Before that, all I could hear was cicadas. So it's been pretty quiet here this year, but like I said, they also cleaned out a bunch of trees that normally you could hear them coming through.
Gotcha.
I know here, Tennessee and all the southeast, we have the 90 to 100 degrees and the 90 to 100% humidity. And a lot of times it slows down for us too. So in the early in the year and later, when it starts getting cool, the activity kind of ramps up. So I don't know if they go somewhere else or what it is. But that's what we're trying to find out. Spencer writes all that stuff down, so we can he's our guy. So yeah, we got some pretty interesting comments about, you're talking about getting zapped, and a steamboat here seemed to said he's had deja vu so many times a day after it happened to him. That's almost like getting struck by lightning, almost, like an energy or something.
Yeah.
Before.
What's weird about here is I've lived here now for 4 years. And if you go to the back of my property, there's a bunch of old houses back there. I don't go in them. I don't want to. I'm usually by myself. So if you ever have a good partner, hang on to them. But I go back there, me and my son, and we're picking up Coke bottles, original Coke bottles. Wow. From there's kind of like a swamp back there at the back of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been here now for 4 years, and we have had weeks of below freezing temperatures. So we went back there and we picked up these Coke bottles. The Coke's still in them. Okay. And the lid's still on them. And it's been below freezing for 2 weeks. how do those bottles survive?
Hmm.
It's kind of weird. Yeah, it is. It is kind of weird. I'm like, no, normally in a normal world, in the normal this and that, those bottles should have exploded. I mean, you're looking at like 10 degrees for or 12 degrees for highs. And how did I end up finding, a 6-pack of bottles back there by the creek, which probably was at one time a moonshiner deal. But
Hmm.
anyway, how do you how do you have these bottles that's never the only thing rusted on them is a cap? That's it. The bottles are still intact.
It's interesting. I wonder if
Yeah.
it's anything similar to like how in like England and Scotland and stuff like that they have the bogs over there in the moor, the they call them the moors, and they actually would use the bogs to preserve different things. So just this is my wheels turning. So I wonder if that would be anything similar in that little swamp right there that would preserve that kind of stuff like that. So I don't know, just my
Right.
thought, my wheels turning
Well,
because we have so much similarities here to that kind of stuff. Have you ever had one mind speak to you?
No, I've never. If something mine spoke to me and told me, "Hey, you need to put your gun away," that's not happening.
No, I'm going to be pulling it much further out.
That's never going to happen. I've never had anything's mind speak to me, other than probably what I put in my own head. Uh, no, that's it. I would never even open my head up for something like that, to mind speak to me. Oh, well, you need to put your gun down. I don't think so, Timmy.
Yeah.
have you have you ever? We started doing this after listening to people like Ken and all that's in chat. A lot of times we go now, whether I do it in my mind, like, hey, we're going to sight in a gun, y'all might ought to leave or whatever. Since that incident we had, they were throwing fits. It's almost like, and I know this sounds crazy, but it's almost like they give us room now. We give them their space, and but you every now and then you'll have something happen that shouldn't happen, like a rock toss or a low growl. It's not anything that you can identify. And like you were talking about the whistle, this growl that happened the other day, it was low. That wasn't what was impressive. It was the length of how long it
Right.
was on,
Mm.
and the vibration. And Heather, like, hearing is better than me. And she turns and looks at me, and I just shook my head. I'm like, we need to keep our head on a swivel. But the whistle that you said you heard, it was something similar, wasn't it? The low tone.
Yeah, it was a lone tone. It was a straight tone. It never changed volume one way or the other. I looked at my dog, which is yeah, there's a lapsa. Uh, I was like, you need to come in the house, and when you come in the house, and Daddy's gonna grab this, and we're gonna go back outside, and that's why normally my dogs stay in the fence. I've seen things around here, like dogs I found back on the fence, dogs that were underneath sheds, dogs that were here and there, and you could hear. I walked out one morning and let my dogs out and brought them back in. And I walked back outside and I could hear this dog, and he was just raising all kinds of cane. And I was like, "There's not a dog over there. Nobody lives over there. There's not a dog." And then I could hear him, and he was just raising cane. And I was like, that is about enough. And whenever I said that, it all come to a screaming halt. I went back over
Mm.
there and I got that dog and I brought it back over here and and made sure it was taken care of, put it in here, put it inside the fence, and then let it out the next day. It belonged to somebody. I don't know who it belonged to, but that little dog was, yeah, he was fighting for his life.
Mm.
So with the audio trouble I've had, I was in and out. Did you give a good description of when you saw it back when you were a kid? Can you tell the people in chat kinda some of the details that you remember? Like, did you see the face? And 'cause I was in and out.
You're cutting out here and there, Roger, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with it.
Yeah, I think
So
he's asking if you remember any physical descriptions of the one you saw when you were a kid.
physical descriptions. This thing was faster. You you hear people talking about they could chase down a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty close. This thing was so fast
Mm.
and going in between those trees and shaking those trees and looking at me. And it looked at me like I didn't need to be there. I didn't belong there. It had no respect for me. This is not a Harry and the Henderson moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you could take something that was 6.5, 7 foot tall. Okay, I'm a big man. I'm 6'5", and I am pretty big. But this thing made me. At that time, I wasn't that. We'll go back there. But at that time, this thing made me feel like I didn't even belong there, and I was not even worth its time to
Mm.
deal with. So, yeah, it was kind of. It looked at you like like it didn't care if you lived or died.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, like I said earlier, you describe something that's arms are as big as my legs, who is standing on, like I said, it's just you can't fathom the size of what this thing is in your mind. I've seen 30 Sasquatches in the woods. I say that, but I don't really mean that. Pareidolia, okay, or pareidolia, however you want to pronounce it. The
Yeah, my
mind
southern
look,
tongue can't pronounce
yes,
it either. You're good.
the mind looks for something. It's trying to piece together what you're looking at, and you can't even put it into anywhere in your mind of how big this thing actually is, as far as what it is.
That that's one thing that people ask me. That's why I asked you. They ask me, like, explain, describe it, and we can throw out numbers all day long. We can throw out 7 foot, 800 pounds, whatever, but the way it's proportioned is way wrong from anything that bear, pig, or whatever, and the way they move, all of that is so mind-scrambling that, a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I could see one. I wished I." You know what? In a way, I wished I never had, but in another way, I wouldn't have met y'all, and the people in chat, and so it's almost, a curse and a blessing type thing, because it opens your mind. Were you open-minded, or did it change the way you thought about other things when you saw this? 'Cause, we're told these things aren't real. But when it's standing
Right.
in front of you running,
At that
it's
time, you don't even think about it because it didn't exist.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
It didn't exist in your mind that there was something out there that could be that big or that scary or anything about it. Because as a kid growing up in the woods, I never seen one. I didn't ask to see it. I didn't say, "Hey, come over here and show me what you look like, so I'll never go in the woods again." No, I didn't ask for any of that. It
And that's
it
something
it
we hear all the time from people is
it,
that they
it
don't ask for this. It just
no,
happens.
let
And
it
then you
does.
start to wonder why.
let me ask
Yeah,
you this.
and I hear people say,
Listen
"Well, if it
in.
didn't want you to see it, it wouldn't have it shown itself." No,
Granddad took you out the next day, he gave you that. You think you would have handled it different if he hadn't have handled it like that?
do what now, Roger? Try it again.
Do you think you would have handled it different, the fighting, if your granddad hadn't have give you the advice and take you back out the next day? If you had to deal with it by yourself, do you think it would have messed with your mind?
It- I always thought I was like, there's something he's trying to tell me, but he's really not telling me.
Mhm.
Uh, I still have granddad's old gun back there in the back, 16 gauge, Montgomery Wards, and he kind of would put things out there, and we'd sit there in the boat and we'd talk while we were fishing and this and that. And I was like, I don't know what he's trying to tell me, but I think he's trying to tell me something in a roundabout way, So I think Grandpa was a knower, but I don't think his upbringing would have allowed him to put it out there.
Right. Well, Kevin, I'm having such bad difficulties here. We've been like an hour and 10, and I don't want to bug people in chat. You mind if we wrap it up here and then maybe continue some other time? Maybe have a panel with other people that gone through some similar things.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Or
folks in
I know he
chat
don't
that
talk about it
seems to
much.
have
I hate
really
to
connected with you tonight.
be early.
That's what Spencer said. Spencer said people connect with you. I was like, yeah, I don't understand why. I'm pretty much a loner. That's just me. And I was raised that way. Things back in my day, Roger's day, we don't connect with people nowadays. We really don't. I mean, we try. I had 2 kids when we were in Hollands, and I was trying to explain to them what they were looking at. I was like, "Do you have a flashlight?" "No." "Here's a flashlight. Make sure I get it back tomorrow. I'm going to walk you up here to these woods, and I'm going to leave you there." And I was trying to tell them the whole time. I was like, "You don't have any idea, child, what you're looking at, or what you're thinking you want to find." So, I mean, they were good kids. They really were. I mean, they were. But I was sitting there trying to explain to them, "You don't know this thing." So I was like, "I don't know this thing, and I've been around for a while. I'm 64, fixed to be 65." I was like, you don't understand what you're asking for." But no, I'm always good. Roger's my friend. I'll do whatever I do. So
We'll 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 come back next time we're over that way. I'll give you a call. Maybe we'll meet, have a cup of coffee or something, and swap stories or whatever. So, uh, Kevin is a great guy. A lot of these people that have met him knows, and I know he doesn't understand. There's no BS in this guy here, and he's funny. Oh, if y'all go to the Woodwalker's page on Facebook and watch his comments on there, yeah, Spencer, he could put Spencer in his pocket. That's he's mini me, but so funny. Yo, 65, yeah, he thought he was in his 40s. Oh, and Larry Bear, uh, with the Chapel Hill light, yes, I have seen it, and, I've told that story on some other shows, and one thing that it looked natural to me, so that's kind of where I am with some of these orbs, where it may be an energy of some kind that may be natural, but other people and that includes, energy includes strange beings. Yeah,
For
y'all
those who couldn't hear Roger that well,
I'm
somebody
sorry.
was no, you're fine. One of the comments earlier in the chat had asked if Roger had ever seen the Chapel Hill lights, and I think it was in one of our previous Squatchin Holler episodes prior to us coming on here on Untold Radio Network that they might be able to go back and find that episode where you talked about a lot of that. So
Hey,
just throwing that out there to the folks who wanna go back and listen to that.
Kevin, read that. Spencer who? But yeah, y'all
that's
go
my buddy.
y'all can go check out the old show, just Squatchin Holler just like this. We have our channel, and we got some really good interviews, but I wanted Kevin on because, he represents all of us. We're gonna mix up the guests we have, and I'm like, I didn't know if he'd say yes or not, but I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure to meet you, even if it's just been through the screen here, and like I said, we're all, here in the southeast, maybe one day we can all get together and have a cup of coffee together, or maybe something a little stronger.
Weather, right?
Well, thanks again to everybody in chat for coming in and hanging out with us tonight. We're going to go ahead and close it out here since we're having a little technical difficulties. Hopefully, maybe we can get Kevin to come back here and continue this conversation later on. So, thanks everybody, and have a good night, y'all.
Thank y'all. Thank everybody in chat. Thank you to all
Thank
the
y'all.
moderators. And yeah, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye bye.
Good night.